Sorry about that. But this was brought to you by Robert Gammon, by Rob's broadcasting channel and the broadcast. So today I wanted to boom. Today I want to try and talk about something that's very important to me. My life has been very good, as you can probably tell. I've enjoyed many things in my life. I wouldn't usually say that, but I think it's important to get it out there. This is my OC Dennis Lump, whom I spent many years working on. Now Dennis Lump is what I call the king of woke. He's a bit of a nutter, and he's like, "Does Jekyll and Hyde, you don't mess with me." He was inspired by my change of political beliefs surrounding the so-called trans debate. I've become more like leftist on that one front. And Denlum represents the working class fighting against class stereotypes and being tough and the things that I like. The more leftist stuff, the more the LGBT people seem to put into my story, I put through him. But Monk Jamon is another OC. When I was younger, I made Monk Jamon because I had this idea of creating a Western themed world of, Western themed world, and he's this tough, no nonsense guy that goes around, apprehending criminals and locking them up, and that sort of thing. And I was inspired by Canadian history, by American history, and I wrote scripts. I've written a lot of scripts and stories. But on the whole, my life has been good. Now, of course, my life revolves around creating characters. Last year was the year where I made Dan Lump and fleshed him out over the course of a few years. And he was the kind of second character that I worked on. The first one was Mike. I worked on him between 2018 and 2022. And I've worked on him post 2023, so early 2023 upwards to now, 2026, right? And they brought me a lot of joy. But I've written scripts, stories, I've written, a lot of things. I've written stories, scripts, I've written comics, drawn comics, I've written a lot of explanation, drawn a lot of illustrations, done a lot of drawings of this one character. As you can see, he's wearing like a very typical outfit. I like this outfit. He's wearing a fez. He's got the hair of the old, like kind of your SGWs back in the day. He's got these kind of manga looking eyes. I always draw him in a manga style, the tweed jacket and the brown trousers. It's kind of inspired by things I like. We often are inspired by things around us, and that is part of life. We're inspired by the world we live in. And AI, unfortunately, takes from websites, and I put my opinion of it. I don't actually know how it works. I've never really learned much about AI, but AI is an easier way to get things done. I get that, and yet I accuse people, "Oh, use AI." Yeah, it's just easier than spending time reading and thinking. It's just more convenient. That's how I would see it personally. But for me, making stuff brings me joy. It's my way of nurturing something, my way of contributing. I'm a quick learner, and in life, we often want to we're often learning and building stuff. Everyone has something to offer, and for me, I'm in the process of becoming more independent in the world, of becoming more adult, grown up. I am an adult, but I don't exactly one. For me, I often find that what makes life better is, at the moment for me, we're all human, no matter who we are. We're all human beings. People that often look different from us, identify different from us, worship different than us. We're all human beings at the end of the day. It doesn't really matter. And that's what my story's about. I've been torn between hardline leftist thinking and a kind of more less love thy neighbour attitude that, you know, the New Testament talks about. Love thy neighbour as you love yourself, and so on and so forth. And then Lamp typifies the tough guy approach, the no nonsense, zero tolerance, alarm approach versus the more peaceful and, well, we need to work together approach that some people would argue will help heal divisions between the left and the right. I think that I'm not really sure who then Lamp represents, but certainly he represents my transition. I'm not trans, but I am not trans, by the way, but you know what I mean by that when I say transition. I mean my change of belief on one of the most important things is identity. What defines us? Do our bodies define us? Of course we have bodies. Our bodies is what keeps our brains going. We often, our abilities, emotions, who we are in general, comes from our brain. If it weren't for my brain, I wouldn't be Robert Gammon. I wouldn't be the man who's talking to now. But more than anyone else, we often define people by things they cannot help, particularly race, you know, sexual orientation, gender, biological sex, so on, and not by things that people can help, which is your character, your sense of what you want, how you treat people. I certainly struggle with that, and sometimes I've made lots of mistakes. And you can't change back time. You cannot. And living in denial and projecting onto others doesn't change anything. Makes your life more miserable. But creating characters is a healthier way of getting out my emotions. Of course, it's still emotions are still a problem for me, but at least I can find a way to vent them without turning it into some hateful grudge. Holding grudges is stupid. You hold a grudge, you're the one that suffers. I've held grudges. I know what that's like. He has held grudges. He's angry. He represents the angry, no nonsense, so-called tough guy, deluded tough guy in my head. I'm not the tough guy, by the way, but he represents that he's a no nonsense guy that was so-called Super Saiyan. If you mess, he doesn't, because he's not a Saiyan, and he's not Goku. But he certainly has that tough guy, badass approach to dealing with division and the far right and that sort of thing that, you know, I like to put it. Mang Jimon represented the old school best enough. He was inspired by my days in school. A lot of what my stories were inspired by my journey in school. Let's say journey, my experiences in combat, and I translated that into my work, particularly my scripts, the stories I wrote. I tried to write a novel, never got published, nor am I intending to. And that doesn't matter. What matters is that even though we're all human, it doesn't matter what we believe. It doesn't matter, you know, whether we don't like how somebody else lives their life. If they're not hurting other people and they're getting on with their life, getting angry about it really doesn't help, because they're getting on with their day. They're having a good time. They're happy about who they are. But you're struggling with bitterness and anger and copium, while somebody else is getting on with their life or got their own issues. I did that in school, and I've made mistakes. And if you continue to make mistakes, you can't go back in time. We haven't got to that point yet. So it's very important to restrain impulse in that regard. Don't make those mistakes. Yeah, coming from me, I'm a little bit of a hypocrite saying that, because I've made mistakes, and I continue to make mistakes, as a lot of what we do. But being kind, being treating people equally, and seeing people as people, not defining people by things that really don't make us that much different, is what it's all about. Well, goodbye.